Welcome to the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. Figure that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. Hello. Season's greetings to each and every one of you. It is January 7th. It is an important day in the Joy household. Why is it an important day? Well, if you paid attention to the Press Row Show last night, you would know. And if you didn't tune into the Press Row Show last night, then you don't know. Today happens to be the birthday of not one, but two of the kids in the Joy household. So we wish young Arlo and Dino a very happy birthday. 6 years apart exactly. Isn't that crazy? Absolute lunacy. I don't actually know anybody else who has two kids with the same birthday with that many years in between. Like, they're not twins. It's 6 years apart. But anyway, happy birthday to both of them. So it's a big day. Now, we have a bunch of stuff to get to. I will remind you, programming note, if you were planning on going out to Glassboro for Snow the Goalie Radio tonight, don't. We will not be there. Show got postponed. It's fine. Everything's fine. Other programming note. We're doing today's show. We'll do Friday's show next week. There, in theory, are going to be shows Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We know how this works when I tend to travel for work. It becomes a little bit difficult. I'm going to take all of my stuff with me across the ocean. And I will hopefully do 3 shows next week and 2 shows the week after from Vienna and from Barcelona. We'll see how it goes. You let me know if you think there's any chance that that's going to happen. I tend to think that I'm going to do my damnedest to make it work, but we'll see if it does or not. So next week and the week after, be coming to you from Europe. The real question is, let me think. So 6 hours ahead. So 8 o'clock is when 2 o'clock is here. I have a lot of meetings. I have a lot of things going on. If I do a 7 a.m. show from over there, that means that it would go live at 1 a.m. here. That might be problematic. I'm going to try to figure it out. I really am. I will try my darndest to get 3 shows in next week. As a matter of fact, I am going to take this out to the people right now. I'm going to put a poll up right now over on the Russ Joy Show YouTube. If you're on the Joy Media YouTube, thank you for being there, but move over to the Russ Joy Show one, because if you do, you'll be able to actually interact with people and with lots of things. And if you're over on X or Facebook, thank you also for being here, but you can't participate in the poll, so you got to go over to the Russ Joy Show. Real simple question. How many shows will Russ do from Europe next week? And we're going to go, I'll give you the options: 3, 2, 1, or 0. Those are your 4 options. And now the poll is live over on YouTube, so you can get your votes in. I saw Ford already hit me with a no. No shows. Says, absolutely, you won't do 3 shows next week. So we're going to see. Now, am I going to use this as motivation? Am I going to use this as, fuel for the fire to get some shows in next week? I might. I'm insane. You never know. So we'll see. Listen, I think there's a non-zero chance that I'm going to get multiple shows in next week. I really am going to try Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Here's the problem, though, right? I have no idea where this hotel is relative to, cool stuff in Vienna. I have no idea where the other hotel is relative to, cool stuff in Barcelona. And I've long, made this joke that, I'm eventually going to try to set up and do a show with, a really cool backdrop. If I'm 6 hours ahead, I could theoretically do a show while it's daytime out and all of you will still maybe be asleep, or I'll do a show where it's nighttime there and it's afternoon for you. I don't know, but we'll figure it out. We're going to have fun, I think, maybe. Will I show up at, City Hall in Vienna, or try to do a show from La Sagrada Familia in Barcelona? Probably not. But if I do, it could be fun. International incident. What if I have to be freed from the embassy or something because I try to do a show, from the middle of La Sagrada Familia? Probably not a great idea. I'm not going to do that. Also, the good Catholic in me knows it's a terrible idea. Will I do any kind of content and then add it to the channel later? Probably not, but maybe. You just never know. Anyway, I'm looking at the poll right now, and I have to tell you that I'm a little bit disappointed in how little some of you think of me. 10% of respondents so far say that I will do 0 shows next week. That is not true. I'm taking my microphone and all the stuff with me in my bag, and if I'm doing that, I am 100% committed to doing at least 1 show. 60% say one show, 10% say two shows, 20% of respondents say, well, now it's 18%, say 3 shows next week. So I'm going to leave that poll up and allow people to change their minds and have a little bit more faith in yours truly. I'm going to go out to the comments. We got to talk some Eagles because there are some conflicting reports around Lane Johnson's availability for this weekend. There was a really weird Elliott Shore Parks take that we might get to. Sixers, I know the Sixers lost in overtime against a depleted Nuggets team, and it shouldn't have happened, but I am going to look at it holistically, and I'm going to look at the last few games, and I'm going to look at the games ahead. I think the Sixers could be poised to go on a little bit of a run here, but most notably, we have to have a conversation around the Philadelphia Flyers and what happened on Tuesday night down at Xfinity Mobile Arena as Trevor Zegras had an ultimate revenge game against his former team. He had some really notable comments after the game, so I want to get to that as well. I'm going to really quickly, though, touch on something before I go out to the comments. The Phillies, I continue to try to show the Phillies a little bit of grace. I legitimately am trying very, very hard at this point to not turn my back on the Phillies because I still ultimately love the Phillies. I still root for the Phillies. I want the Phillies to be successful. There is this campaign right now that, you know, are the Phillies trying to play 3D chess? Are they trying to force JT Realmuto to take a contract that is beneficial to them? And will that ultimately be the end of the offseason? Are they really playing footsies with JT Realmuto because they maybe are interested in bringing in Bo Bichette and they're just hoping that something's going to give? Like, I don't know. Can I just say really quickly, I get that there is a significant tax bill that John Middleton would have to pay if he not only paid for JT Realmuto's return, but also for Bo Bichette. Can I also point out that, like, if the goal is to win a World Series, the Phillies cannot go into another season not bringing in a guy like Bo Bichette, who would be like first, second, or third in virtually every major batting metric if you took last year's numbers and applied them to the Phillies lineup. You can't miss out on him and not bring back JT and not bring back Ranger Suarez. Like, I'm already in the mental headspace that, like, they're going to fuck this up with Ranger Suarez. That, like, Suarez could theoretically be had for a decent enough price, and that if you don't bring him back, I think you are going to deeply regret it and go from, like, you know, a potential rotation of 5 legitimate starters with, like, 4 guys that have proven to be, like, stone cold killers at different points. You could theoretically go down to having 3 reliable starters and then 2 big question marks, 1 in Nola, 1 in Painter. I don't want to see that. If you don't bring back Realmuto, your options are what? Marchand and Stubbs. Is that what they're going to do? I saw that there was another name rumored out there, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Another Twins player. It's like they only think they can trade with the Twins now. You got that. I really want to see the Phillies make a splash. I get that there's going to be a big tax bill if it happens, but man, if you go into next year with what this team is currently, even if you were to bring back Suarez and Realmuto, I don't think that moves the needle enough. I think you do need to have an infusion of new blood. I think that Bichette's that guy. Bregman is a good player, has a winning pedigree, but to me, Bichette, like, that's the guy to go after. And I hope it happens. We'll see if it happens. I have no clue if it will. But I will give you a little bit of, you know, Phillies positivity. If you are really of the belief that John Middleton is 100% committed to going all in and doing whatever it takes to bring back his trophy, Realmuto and Bichette, I would take those 2. And if you have to let Ranger walk, it would suck. But if it's bring back Realmuto and bring in Bichette, I think that puts the Phillies in a much better position to be a World Series contender. I'd be fine with it. But man, if all you get out of those 3 is just bringing back Realmuto, like, that ain't good enough. Not good enough at all. I've been watching some Phillies fans, like, trying to, like, bend themselves into, like, logical pretzels over the last few days about how, like, this team was still the second best team in the National League. This team really, put a bit of a scare into the Dodgers, who were pretty much unbeatable. No. And also, by the way, seeing this idea that, like, Ranger Suarez might end up with the Mets, that should be enough to, like, get John Middleton to whip out the checkbook or, like, whip out Venmo or PayPal or Zelle or whatever that, man, I don't know, is he trading crypto? Whatever John Middleton trades in, wherever his money is located, You can't let Ranger Suarez leave to a division rival. You just can't do it. Please don't let it happen. Please, just don't do it. Okay. I'm going to go out to the comments, and then we're going to get into everything else. Chris Friedis here says, so if the Eagles flame out on Sunday, does Jeffrey and Howie give John Harbaugh a call on Monday morning? No. I got to tell you, if I didn't want to start here, we know that I try to avoid hyperbole whenever possible, okay? If the Eagles flame out in the first round of the playoffs, if they lose at home to the 49ers, and after that game, in the days that follow, if Nick Sirianni is approached by Jeffrey Lurie and or Howie Roseman, and they say, you got to let Kevin Patullo go, and Nick Sirianni says, no, I'm standing by my guy, then he can stand by his guy in the unemployment line. I know how successful Nick Sirianni's been. I know that there are going to be people who say, that is an absolutely absurd take. How could you say it? Under many circumstances, I would actually agree that it is a ridiculous premise. I think John Harbaugh is a really good coach. I think that Stefanski, a two-time coach of the year, is a very good option. I think that if there were ever a time that like you maybe make a change at head coach, if he won't fire the offensive coordinator, that's it. Well, you have two really good options there. I'm not advocating for it. I'm not saying that you actively look to fire Nick Sirianni. But if they flame out in the wild card round at home to a 49ers team that doesn't have a linebacker to speak of, and Kevin Patullo can't scheme this offense into a spot where they take advantage of the lack of linebackers and this team gets bounced early in what should be the middle of a really legitimately open Super Bowl window, and the head coach won't move on from his dog shit offensive coordinator, then it's a conversation to have. I mean, there are legitimate guys that are going to be available for an OC position. I gotta think that if you are the Philadelphia Eagles, you are looking at some of the names that are coming available. And yet there are going to be guys that are going to get legitimate head coaching opportunities. But I think that you have more coaches now hitting that open market that could theoretically fill in for a year as offensive coordinator. And as much as I want the Eagles to get a guy who long-term can be like sort of like a Vic Fangio, somebody who doesn't have the aspiration to be a head coach or at least be a head coach anytime soon, I would really rather them have a guy like that as offensive coordinator and give Jalen Hurts somebody who like stays in the position longer than a year. All that said, there are good minds out there. There are, good offensive minds that are available at offensive coordinator potentially. If this thing flames out, you have to make a change at offensive coordinator. And if the head coach won't do that, then maybe he needs to find himself a new place as well. But again, I'm not advocating for it. I'm pretty confident here that Amadeo is somehow going to clip that up to make it seem like I am actively campaigning for Nick Sirianni to lose his job. I'm not. But we have to be fair, because if nothing else, we are fair on this program, okay? What is unfair right now is now I'm looking at the poll about how many shows I'm going to do next week, and 78% of you think it's going to be one show or fewer. 78% of you. 39% say one show, 39% says 0 shows. Come on! What are we doing? Now I'm motivated to do at least 2. I'm going to end the poll there, and I'm going to show all of you next week. Show each and every one of you saying 0 or 1 shows. How dare you? Ye of little faith. Ye of little faith. Okay. More comments. Let's see. Chris Freed asks, and Russ, we need to talk about you and the Sixers again. When you get all hot and bothered over them, the Sixers go lay a rotten egg. Will you ever learn? No. I'm not ever going to learn. No. Amadeo says they're not firing Sirianni. We'll see. Nick Abe says they won't get rid of Nick. Ford is here. You're welcome. Well, what would I have done without Ford here today? Nick Abe says Kevin Patullo will easily be gone. I'm not so sure that it'll be so easily, but Bondarenko's here. Thank you for the birthday wishes for my children, and also with a good afternoon to everyone. Let's see. Zach O is here. Says, oh yes. Nick Abe says would sign Kingsbury. Kingsbury's a guy that I would happily bring in a Kingsbury or a Stefanski as an offensive advisor, right? The same way that Fangio was brought in, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, to be like a defensive advisor, right? I would absolutely try to go out and get one of the best offensive minds in the game, bring them in for help during the postseason. And then you see where the chips fall. I don't think a Kingsbury is going to want to be an offensive coordinator for the Eagles. I don't think Stefanski's going to want to pass up on head coaching opportunities to be the Eagles offensive coordinator. But if you can get another guy, get another really good mind in that room for the playoffs, we'll see. I also think that the Eagles are going to go on a long run. I really do. I know that there have been a lot of concerns around the offense, and I've been concerned around the offense. I'll tell you what, I'm honestly I'm at peace. Right now, I'm at peace going into this game against the 49ers. Will I be at peace next week? I don't know, but going into this game against the Niners, I feel okay. I do think that there's a possibility that this game gets very close down the stretch, and we hate the team again, but I think I'm pretty confident they win this week. I think that there's a legitimate chance that this defense is able to carry this team almost to or maybe even to a Super Bowl. So I'm not turning on the Eagles right now. I hope more than anything, Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni are two of the biggest fucking idiots in the world, and they went through this entire season saying, we can win with an overly conservative system, show nothing, put nothing on film. And then when the playoffs roll around, they're going to be like, oh wait, there was an extra 67% to the playbook. Oops, we've only been calling up the first couple of pages. Oh, there was more. I want to believe that their hubris won't be their undoing, but rather their arrogance will somehow lead them to be like, oh yeah, you guys thought that what we did all year was what we were really going to do? We don't give a shit about the regular season. Welcome to the playoffs. This is where the Eagles tend to do the most damage. Now we open things up for Jalen Hurts in this incredible offense. I would love to believe that's going to happen. It would be awesome if it did. I have no idea if it will. I'm pretty sure it won't. But it would be pretty cool. And then you go, wow, Sirianni, the ball's on you, dude. Yeah, you guys were like sleepwalking through the regular season. Bold strategy, Cotton, but it paid off. We'll see. We will see. At the Helm Outdoors says, yes, we believe. I think does that mean we believe that I'm going to do more shows next week? Maybe. Z2 Pro says, how about them Ducks? We'll talk about them in a second. This is weird. Chris Freed says, I know a classmate whose mother tried to time both her and her sister to be born on the same day. Classmate was very upset that oh God, that's horrible. Oh, Freed, I didn't read the full comment. Why? Oh, God, that's awful. Now, the downside to doing the live show. Chris Reed. I think I'm going to ban Chris Reed for the rest of the show. I won't. But if that is true about the mom, I hope she saw a medical professional. Okay. Let's see. Gritty123 says, I'm going to the Sixers game in Orlando on Friday. Hey, good on you. Enjoy that. Enjoy the Sixers game in Orlando. That should be a lot of fun. Legitimately, should be a lot of fun. Ford asks, will you be able to have any fun? I guess when I'm in Europe. That's the thing with overseas trips for work. Can't actually enjoy where you are. I have no idea. I have my schedule looks unbelievably packed with meetings. I think the first day that I'm in Vienna, I'll have enough time to like take a real quick look around and be like, wow, it's beautiful here. And then I'll see a bunch of conference rooms. And then I'll fly to Barcelona. And I think one of the days that I'm in Barcelona, the only place I really want to go to Sagrada Familia. It's the only place I want to go. I used to teach lessons about it. It's one of the coolest architectural things in the history of humanity. I would really like to get there, if for only like an hour or two. We'll see. I'm sure that like there'll be some fun stuff going on, but like it's gonna be a lot of meetings. It's gonna be a lot of work, and that's the whole thing. Work pays for you to go somewhere cool. You go and you do work, and if you get to see some fun stuff, well then cool. Nick Abe says, I better see a buzz cut when you get back. I actually got a haircut. I don't know how you could tell. The hair was getting out of control. So I decided to get a little haircut. And I did trim the mustache. Now, do I look like Maduro to you? I don't know. If I go and I put on a gray jumpsuit, will I get stopped at customs or something? Will they be like, hola, señor Maduro de Venezuela? No. I think we'll be okay. Let's see. Bondarego says, share your experience being in those countries and chat some Philly sports. Yeah, let me see if I can find some Eagles fans. The only thing I'm upset about is my flight on Sunday is set to leave after kickoff of the Eagles game. So I'm going to be at the mercy of whether or not this flight, one, has access to the NFL games, two, if this flight has good Wi-Fi, right? I will buy the damn Wi-Fi. I will. I'll buy the Wi-Fi so I could try to tap into like YouTube TV or something. If I have to use a VPN while I'm over the freaking ocean to have access, I will use the damn VPN. I don't want to miss the Eagles game. And at the same time, I want to go to sleep because I'm leaving in the evening. And when I land in Germany, it's going to be the morning. And so I want to like confuse my body clock into believing that like, oh yeah, it's morning and it feels like morning. But then I'm also going to like be up and like very stressed out watching the Eagles game. Okay. That's it. Nick Abe says, you will miss us if you don't do shows. Exactly. How could I leave all of you? How could I let all of you down? It'd be so sad. At the Helm says, technology will interfere, but we know deep down in your heart you will always try your best for 3 shows. Thank you, At the Helm. At the Helm has climbed my power rankings of commenters on the show. Let's see. Nick Abe says, I just saw John Clark say Lane Johnson's back. I want to get to that in a second because that's what has been interesting to me. Gritty says, Anthony Sanchil Ippo. Ooh, I like that. We'll say any move the Phillies make is a great move. That's probably true. AJ says saying the Phillies scared the Dodgers is the ultimate Philly delusion. Anthony Sanchilippo would probably tell you more than anyone that they gave the Dodgers a real run. Let's see. I'm going to skip around here. Tony Louie says, for the first time in like 8 years, I feel like the Flyers are headed in the right direction. Ho, 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 ho. I think that actually might be a pretty fair spot to jump off. I think that might be a very, very fair place to get things started today, my friends. So let's start there. Let's start with Tony Louie. For the first time in 8 years, I feel like the Flyers are headed in the right direction. Tuesday night at Xfinity Mobile Arena is exactly what Flyers fans have been waiting for a long time. And whether you agree with the direction of the rebuild to this point, whether you agree with the selections of Matvei Michkov or Jet Lachenko or Porter Martone or Jack Nesbitt or any other player, Tuesday night was a playoff atmosphere at Xfinity Mobile Arena. The Flyers felt like they had legitimate hatred and vitriol for their opponent. You don't see that a lot when the Flyers play against other teams from the Metropolitan Division or the Eastern Conference or, hell, the Western Conference. But there does seem to be legitimate hatred between the Flyers and the Ducks, specifically the Flyers and Quitter Gauthier. What we saw on Tuesday night is what playoff hockey is supposed to feel like. And if you were watching on TV, listening on the radio, or checking things out via the Press Row Show, you very clearly were able to hear that crowd was raucous. That crowd had that place jumping. The roof was ready to blow off. And the fuck you Cutter chants were at an all-time high. That was an incredible atmosphere to be in. And it once again reaffirmed how I feel about this season and this team. I want to see this team in the playoffs. I want to see what this team looks like in a first-round series, and I am fully willing to admit, if they sneak in as one of the last teams in the playoffs, it's going to be a hell of a task to try to take one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference to 6 games, 7 games, maybe even win a series. But I want to see what this team does when the rubber meets the road. This team, there is something about the way they play for one another. And it doesn't feel like lip service, and it doesn't feel like bullshit. This team feels like they genuinely want to see one another succeed. This team feels like a team that will go to war for one another. Case in point, Bobby Brink gets hit early in this game, right? Eventually gets evaluated for a concussion. That's at least what it looked like. The spotter pulled him off the bench, and then we hear that he's got an injury. Noah Cates drops the gloves. Okay. Later on in the game, you see a play that I initially thought was a headshot, but it looked like maybe it was a leg-to-leg thing, where Jamie Drysdale is down for so long they bring out the stretcher, right? He's able to get to his feet. It's great. He doesn't return to the game. Obviously, we hope that Jamie Drysdale is doing better today. You get to a point in this game where there is a very clear headshot, elbow to the head by Trouba on Barkey. This team nonstop went to war against the Ducks. You had guys standing up for one another. You had a ton of fracases all over the ice. There was a true level of vitriol, and I mentioned that this team very clearly doesn't like Quitter Gauthier. Sean Couturier went after Gauthier multiple times. I don't know how many times he showed up on TV, but just about any time Couturier was within an arm's reach of Gauthier, He was slashing at the back of that dude's legs. He very clearly does not like Gauthier and does not like the fact that Gauthier forced his way out of here. I saw a tweet out there, somebody who was taking pictures last night of the game, was doing photography, like doing official photography, not like just somebody out there with a flip phone, right, or with their iPhone. But it was a zoom in on Travis Konechny and Cutter Gauthier, and it said, I can't repeat what he chirped at Gauthier in that moment. There was something really impressive about how that team played last night, the way that the crowd lifted that team up. And I will also point out, I'm usually critical of Philly teams, Philly fans especially, that when things go wrong early in a game, what could have been a very loud crowd gets unbelievably silent as soon as something goes wrong. Early in this game, the Flyers have multiple opportunities to score. They can't break through. Power play goes against the Flyers. Gauthier scores the first goal of the game and then does a very definitive salute to the crowd, a gesture to the crowd. Now, if that had been any other player on the Ducks, maybe the arena does get quiet. You know what happened? Gauthier scored. There was a brief, and then it was right back to fuck you, Cutter. That crowd was ready to lift the team up and to absolutely obliterate Gauthier. And then what happens? Trevor Zegras scores back-to-back goals on pretty much the same play from pretty much the same exact spot on the ice twice. And you could tell that last night's game meant a lot more to Zegras than he was kind of letting on to the media ahead of it. You could tell that that game last night meant the world to Trevor Zegras to have the opportunity to go and stick it to the team that chose to move on from him. And like, here's where the Gauthier and the Zegras of it all really aren't the same, right? Gauthier forced his way out of Philadelphia for whatever reason, right? Zegras was widely regarded as a guy that Anaheim was going to build around and that Anaheim really believed in. Well, clearly at some point they stopped believing. Remember, they moved him from center to wing, and it felt like Zegras was never going to find his ultimate ceiling playing in Anaheim. They moved him, and like, what was the trade? He was effectively traded for a bottom six forward in Ryan Poehling. Think about how you would feel if you were Trevor Zegras in that situation. Zegras scores a goal last night. He does the celebration where he takes the phone and hangs up. He's asked about it post-game, and he says, oh, that's how long the call was, very clearly implying that when he was informed that he was traded by Anaheim, it was a very quick call and a hang-up by the Ducks. Well, Zegras made them pay last night. And Zegras also had a couple of other moments post-game. He had a really cool quote during one of the intermissions, and if I try to play it on the show, YouTube will flag it because they flagged the Press Row show for it last night. I have no idea why it got flagged. Oh, you used NHL footage. Bunch of bullshit. All right, because we happened to use a clip of Trevor Zegras talking about the fact that he loves the booze, he loves the cheers even more. But Zegras was asked what it was like to score 2 goals against a team that had essentially given up on him. All I need here, I'm sure many of you have heard this by now. Here's what Trevor Zegras said when asked what it felt like to score 2 goals against a team that gave up on him. Let's go out to Trevor Zegras.
You, Trevor, and you come in here, you pot 2 in that first period. How good did that feel?
Fucking amazing. Fucking amazing. Yeah.
That's it. Fucking amazing. Good for him. Seriously, good for Trevor Zegras. Played almost 23 minutes last night, scored 2 goals, had a legitimate chance to maybe get a hat trick on an empty net, played his ass off, and he admitted in the locker room after the fact that that game did mean a lot more to him than he was letting on. And I also think that I think it's really cool when a player admits, yeah, you know what, like I may have fibbed a little bit. I may have kind of downplayed how much that game meant to me. Now, there's something else that came out of this game, and this happened post-game. This was in the scrum. Zegras got asked about what it's like to play in Philadelphia, the atmosphere, this game. And I think it's important that you also hear from Zegras post-game about what it means to play in Philadelphia.
You said how much this game meant to you, that you kind of had this circled for a while. With the way it played out, does this kind of close the book on that chapter for you, or are you still going to kind of let that fuel you?
I don't know. I mean, this is home for me. I love being here. These guys are amazing. I'm having a blast. So I guess in a way, yeah. but it's always going to feel good playing them for sure.
You
So-
said how much.
There you go. The dude gets it. I'll tell you what, there is a level of pandering that can happen, right? We talk about it all the time. A lot of times we kind of mock the fact that like Bryce Harper so clearly is doing nothing but pandering to the fans, pandering to the fan base. But like Zegras really clearly seems to understand what it means to play in Philadelphia, what the fans are looking for. And the fact that he's going out of his way to call this place home. He was the witness to Christian Dvorak signing his contract. If you didn't see that, Dvorak got or printed out or whatever the contract really late at night, and it was like 11 or 11:30 at night, and he needed a witness, somebody to witness him signing his contract. So he called Zegras to see if Zegras would be his witness. And so Zegras witnessed Dvorak sign the extension, the $25.75 million extension. Zegras also said a lot of really positive things about how much the locker room loves Dvorak and how they wanted him to stay. It's only a matter of time before Zegras is signed long-term by the Flyers. I don't know how much of it is the Flyers trying to be cute, maybe wait for him to try to cool off and get him at a lower number. I don't know. It feels like the longer the Flyers wait for Trevor Zegras to cool down, the more points he racks up, and the more points he racks up, and the closer he gets to being a point-per-game player, or even better than that, the higher that fee is going to go, the higher the AAV is going to go up. Through 41 games, he's got 41 points. So, is he going to be an 80-point player? Is he going to be an 82-point player? Is he going to get into the 90s? Will he go on a heater and, I don't know, somehow threaten to get closer to 100? I have no idea. I think that you're seeing a Trevor Zegras play, such good hockey that $9 million is probably the lowest you're going to get him at right now, unless you try to wait until the offseason and hope that he slows down. I don't know. I really don't know. I hope they re-sign. I really hope that they re-sign him and at a good number. I don't want it to be like at a back-breaking number, right? Like Zegras has had concerns around health in prior years. They clearly don't think he's a center. But man, whether it's a hybrid role with Dvorak taking faceoffs, whatever, Zegras has been way better than I think the Flyers even expected him to be. And you have to think that Anaheim is watching the way that Zegras is playing going, damn, why couldn't we unlock that player? Z2Bro says, I missed your reaction to the Dvorak signing, Russ, but I don't hate it. Definitely a long deal. But we need centers and could do worse than Devo. Great game last night. Dvorak played really well last night. So there you go. You wanted your, how does this guy show up after he gets a big extension? He played really well. He did. He and Zegras have something special together. I hope it continues. They have figured out some fantastic chemistry between them. Tony Louis says, after watching the way the team has played this season and then watching Berglund and Ruonin in World Juniors, I feel like some legit help at center is on the way. Then Martone and Zavragan on the way. So Berglund and Ruonin, I don't know how much stock I want to put in them as NHL players based on World Junior, but I definitely think that Berglund is closer to being considered a legitimate prospect in the system. They're not going to change their plans around, Jack Berglund's eventually going to be here and be a 1C. But I do think he certainly put himself in an even stronger position in terms of what guys could maybe get a look in the next year or 2 years. I think Berglund's still at least another year away. Nesbitt's probably 2 years away. Lachenko, God knows. Zavragan is a very intriguing prospect in net. Martone looks like the real deal. We will see. I still think the really wild thing is if you play this one out, Forster's out for the year. I think at some point you're going to see Alex bump. Hopefully Brink is okay and doesn't miss significant time. I think you'll see bump at some point this season. I think Barkey's going to stay up. I don't know how you could justify taking him out of the lineup. There's still a chance, depending on how Michigan State season goes, that Martone is here and Martone makes a playoff roster. And boy, wouldn't that be fun. Can you imagine if Martone comes up, plays with the Flyers at the end of the season, goes into the playoffs and has himself a strong showing? That would be incredible. That's the kind of thing that you need to be able to show to not free agents in 26, but maybe a certain very important Quinn Hughes free agent in 2027. And maybe it's the thing that you need to show that if there's a player out there that had a no trade clause and no movement clause and had the Flyers on that list, maybe you go in and have a really strong showing in the playoffs and you have all these young guys coming up, taking strides, looking like this is a team that's legitimately on the upswing. Well, maybe it makes a guy consider that no trade clause, and all of a sudden, maybe the Flyers are able to make a deal, maybe not before the deadline, but around the draft next season. We'll see. I still have hope. Chris Freed says, I hope that I'm wrong, but the Flyers game yesterday feels like the high water mark for the team for the season. I hope I'm wrong. I think you are wrong. Last year, it definitely felt like the high water mark for what last season's team was going to be. I think this team still has another level to hit. I do. Gritty says, I was on here saying I don't care much for Grebenkin, but he won me over last night, beating out Gudas for that icing and then laying a hit on 45 right after. Yeah, I mean, I like Grebenkin. He's not perfect. Seriously, he's not perfect, but I like Grebenkin a lot. Miller Brad says, you're acting much different today than you did on Monday ripping into the Flyers. I didn't rip into the Flyers. I raised the concerns that you can have around the Dvorak signing and the fact that, organizational depth at center is not something they have. That is a failure. I don't have a way to spin that positively. If you're looking for me to, glaze the Flyers and say, oh, they've got so many great prospects. They don't. If you want to find a negative, it's that they don't have a 1C or a number one defenseman in the pipeline. They don't have it. They're going to have to figure out a way to get one through a trade, through free agency in 2 years. You're gonna woo Quinn Hughes? Are you gonna somehow hypnotize Connor McDavid? I don't know. But I could still feel good about the team that I saw last night. I can still feel good about the fact that this locker room seems to genuinely like each other. And you don't need to love every player, right? You don't need to love every teammate. But I do think that when you are working together as a collective unit and you're fighting for one another and you're in the trenches together, I do think it matters. And it feels like this team is close. I have not heard of fracturing in the locker room like there were with some prior teams, we'll say. Let's see. Bondarenko says, Zegras really wanted to stick it to Anaheim. I agree. Nick Abe says, you're going to talk about that 9-0 Islanders-Devils game. Horrific result for the Devils. I mean, the Devils look absolutely dead to rights. I don't know what the Devils are going to do. I mean, it is bad there. We saw one of the all-time worst goaltending performances, maybe in recent memory, maybe in the modern era. 9-0 is an embarrassing result. And Luke Hughes doesn't look like an NHL player right now. So make of that what you will. Let's see. Miller Brad says, Talk spoke a bit ago, said no updates on the injuries. I mean, I think Brink probably has a concussion. Again, he was pulled off the bench by the spotter. So good chance there's a concussion. I'm not sure what the status is on Drysdale. Let's see. I see some questions over here about could Berglund be in Lehigh next season? Maybe. I don't know. I haven't talked to enough people and had an in-depth enough conversation to know where Berglund's going to end up next year. Tony Louis says Mike Johnson was comparing Runen to Mikko Koivu, and I'd love that. That would be pretty cool. Let's see. Luke Ryan Reese says, Flyers look good and it's fun, but the rebuild was rushed for a winger. Well, they've got two wingers that in theory are going to be really good players in Martone and Michkov. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. Nick Abe says, I think Briere is betting on Zegras being a center. Well, he certainly isn't telling Taka to play him at center then, if that's the case. So I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. Casual Warzone guy says, I just want to see Zegras centering a Michkov Martone line. I see no scenario where that happens unless Zegras somehow sweet talks Tocchet into believing that he's a 200-foot player out of nowhere. So I don't know. All right, so that's all of that. Now there was a cool thing that came out of the Flyers today. If you're looking for a little positive, right? You're looking for another layer of positivity. Shout out to Travis Ballingoff for having this, but he said he had a 3-minute clip. Now, we're not going to show you the whole 3-minute clip, but in a very cool kind of moment, Matvei Michkov was showing Denver Barkey how to do the Michigan, which is pretty funny. So you got these two working together after practice, and here you go. Here's Michkov trying to show Denver Barkey how to do a Michigan, and listen, I know that there have been people out there this year saying, "Oh, does Michkov hate being in Philly? Is Tocchet going to sour him on Philadelphia so much? Is he miserable? All this bullshit, right? This to me is just like one of those cool moments where it's like, young dude in his second year in the league, you know, messing around with his rookie teammate, you know. Is there any use for Denver Barkey to know how to do a Michigan in a game? No. Do I like seeing this and think it's pretty cool? I do. Again, you want to talk about a team that seems to genuinely like one another. I think that this Flyers team really likes Denver Barkey. There was the comment that Tocchet had the other day about like needing to figure out what they're doing with him so that he's not like living out of a suitcase. Like it's unfair to a player to live out of a suitcase, right? I think Barkey's going to stay. Unless his play falls off in a really huge way over the next like 2 weeks, I think he's going to be here. I think he's going to be here for the rest of the season. He's been fantastic. I don't know how you could possibly consider sending him back down at this point. Good on him. He's impressed everyone. And the team really clearly seems to like him. Not just the players, but the front office, the coaching staff. He seems to have made a really good impression, so good on him. All right, now, a couple other things. Sixers lost the other night. I brought this up. I was just kind of taking a look ahead at what is to come. They have the Wizards tonight. Embiid got upgraded to probable. They should absolutely slaughter the Washington Wizards at home. That Friday game at Orlando is a really interesting one. Then they're at the Raptors 2 games in a row and back-to-back nights that they're at Toronto, which is interesting. Then next week, they are at home back-to-back games against Cleveland, which also feels really weird with a night in between, right? So they're going to go Sunday, Monday at Toronto, and then Wednesday, Friday of next week, home against the Cavs. Now, if you just take a goosey gander at the standings, Cleveland is currently in 6th, below the Sixers, who are in 5th. The Raptors are just above the Sixers in 4th. So these games, you know, they're not going to make or break the season, but if you're looking to try to get yourselves out of that middle of the conference, well, then you've got 3 huge games coming up, Raptors and the Cavs. You've got big games coming up against those 2 teams, and you get to hopefully get things back on the right track after losing to a depleted Nuggets team. You have a great opportunity tonight to get that bad taste out of your mouth, beat up on a Wizards team that has been absolutely god-awful, 10-25 on the season. And I didn't even mention this, but the Sixers in the not-too-distant future are also going to play the Pacers, who are last in the conference. This should be a moment that as the Sixers, you can put together some legitimate momentum and go into a really tough stretch, and then you're going to come out of it and take on the Pacers. Then they've got the Suns, Rockets, Knicks. Like, it gets intense again. This is where the Sixers can prove, if they are legit, that they are legit. Like, this is where you have the opportunity to show that this big 4 of Joel Embiid, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe are able to play together. You're able to have Embiid in the lineup pretty consistently, Paul George hopefully in the lineup pretty consistently. There was something pretty cool that did come out. I know a lot of people don't like LeBron. I'm not exactly the biggest LeBron guy either. But LeBron was effusive in his praise on Mind the Game Pod. And so I want to go over to one of the clips that really stood out. This is LeBron talking about working out with Tyrese Maxey in the offseason and the kind of drive that Maxey has to be great. This is LeBron from, I believe, a couple nights ago.
I'm going to talk about, because he's been taking a leap after leap after leap over the last few years, is Tyrese Maxey. I've worked out and trained with him over the last few summers. Every morning, 5 a.m., we're in the gym, 5:30, whatever, in the gym, and you just see like his dedication. Shows up on time, on target every single day. A guy who just loves the game and is taking full advantage of the opportunity in Philly, you know. And you know, I love the kid. He's I talked about it when we played Philly, you know, not too long ago, about how not only incredible of a basketball player he is, but how much better he is as a person, which is saying a lot because he's an unbelievable basketball player.
Now, whether you like LeBron or not, that is still one of the best players of all time, being absolutely effusive in his praise of the Sixers' young superstar guard, right? And then I'm going to take that and I'm going to flip it a little bit as well. LeBron is over the top in his praise of Maxey. Maxey has then turned and been effusive in his praise of VJ Edgecombe. Remember, like, Maxey said that there are days where, like, Edgecombe is at the gym as early or even earlier than Maxey, right? And Maxey, who's being, you know, given a ton of credit by an all-time great in LeBron, is pretty much given the same level of praise to his rookie teammate, VJ Edgecombe. That to me is where you go, yo. Regardless of what happens with Embiid, with Paul George, you have a backcourt that for the next decade could be the best backcourt in the league. That's not just the Eastern Conference, the league. High praise. Really, really cool to see. Let's see. Ford is right here, says, I would love to see the Sixers get ahead of the Celtics. I would too. You have to give the Celtics a lot of credit. I hate Boston teams, right? What they're doing without Jason Tatum is really impressive. It is. I think that ultimately the Sixers have a chance to get somewhere into the top two. The Pistons are on a real run. They're having a great season. Good for them. Boston has had a season that has exceeded all expectations. I think the Sixers are a better team than the Knicks, and a lot of people thought the Knicks were going to be the best team in the Eastern Conference. I would like to see the Sixers in that like top two, at worst top three by the end of the regular season. Host a playoff game, maybe host two playoff games depending on where they finish. I think all of it's realistic. I know that it was a tough loss, a loss that they shouldn't have had against the Nuggets, and yet I'm willing to write that one off because they have looked really, really good leading up to that. We'll see if this Wizards game kind of gets them back on the right track and how the next 4 or 5 games go. All right, last thing I wanted to get to today is the conflicting reports around Lane Johnson. So Brian Baldinger said it was either on his show or on somebody else's show that he really didn't think Lane Johnson was going to play this week. And then I saw that a few tweets got deleted along the way. Dave Zangaro put out about an hour ago, Lane Johnson and Nakobe Dean are both practicing today. They are both out of practice. I think Vic Fangio had said he expected Nakobe Dean to play. Lane Johnson practicing today has to be a good thing. Jeff McClain had it out there that Lane Johnson is suited up and at practice, so it looks like he's a full participant. It looks like he was practicing with the starting unit. I got to think that he's going to play. Adam Schefter apparently said on 97.5 The Fanatic today, without speaking to a single person this week about it, I'm going to tell you right now, I'd be floored if Lane Johnson didn't play on Sunday. He's going to be out there. Let me tell you right now, he's going to be out there playing. Every one of the beats in the last hour has been tweeting about Lane Johnson. There's video of Lane Johnson going around, of Nakobe Dean going around. I got to think that those guys are going to be in the lineup on Sunday. I'll give you this last point. Ross Tucker was on WIP's morning show today, and he was talking just about the health of the line and the health of Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson. And he said that, he knows these guys, socializes with these guys sometimes. And he was just pointing out that, he didn't think that the Eagles' offensive line that was definitely the best in the league last year was even a top 10 unit this year, but really talked about the injuries to Dickerson and to Jurgens. For as critical as I felt on Monday, right, even though I was willing to give some grace, I was still kind of critical of you could have had the number 2 seed and you didn't go for it. When you hear how much better it sounds like Jurgens and Dickerson are doing with an extra week and Lane Johnson is doing with an extra week, and you have to assume that a Jordan Mailata is going to feel better with a week off, I think that there's a very good chance. I'm not saying that the Eagles are going to blow the 49ers out, because I have to see that Kevin Patullo's offense can actually take advantage of a linebackerless San Francisco team. I think the Eagles can win. I think the Eagles can kind of put the rest of the conference on notice with a win against the Niners on Sunday. Nothing would make me happier than watching this Eagles team re-find its confidence. You have to remember, this Eagles team has figured out a way to get to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years, win 1, and in both your quarterback outplayed Patrick Mahomes. And were it not for a call on Bradbury late in the first Super Bowl appearance of this little era, you might be talking about the fact that the Eagles are a potential dynasty. 2 Super Bowl wins in 3 years, right? I think that when you get down to nut crunching time, this team is going to be able to get it done. Yes, we have all been frustrated all season with the offense. Yes, there is a possibility we will be frustrated with the offense in the postseason and it all falls apart. But man, until the Eagles show that they don't have it in the playoffs, I'm going to keep riding with the Eagles. I'm going to keep riding with them and believe that they are going to get it done this week. They are going to continue to get it done on a nice deep run, maybe back to another Super Bowl. I'm still bullish on your team, your town, your Philadelphia Eagles. And with that, it is time to go. I want to thank everybody who joined me live on YouTube, Facebook, and X, and a big thank you to all of you who joined after the fact, listen in the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, wherever you get your podcasts. Do me a favor, if you haven't done so already, like the video, share the video, subscribe on YouTube. We're getting closer to 2,000 subscribers. I would love to get there at some point during this Eagles playoff run. So if you haven't done so yet, subscribe. If you're like, hey, I don't have a YouTube account, I do like the guest mode or whatever on the TV. You don't have to if you don't want to, you don't have to, ring the bell to get notified every time there's an episode. But hitting that 2,000 subscriber mark, that would be pretty cool. I would like to see that happen. It would mean a lot to me. So, please consider. Don't make me go black and white and then have Sarah McLachlan or whatever, playing me out. I don't need that. No one needs that. We don't necessarily, need to go there. I think it would be kind of weird if all of a sudden, we had to go into black and white or something. Okay. So, yeah, that's it. That's all I got for you today. I hope everybody enjoyed today's episode. I hope that many of you will start to believe in me a little bit more. That we'll have more than 0 or 1 shows next week when I'm in Europe, but we'll see. I'll be back on Friday. I'll also be back on Thursday night with the Press Row Show as the Flyers play at Xfinity Mobile Arena on Thursday night. So I'll talk to some of you then. For the rest of you, I'll talk to you Friday here on the Russ Joy Show. Until then, this has been the Russ Joy Show, and I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. Have a great night, everybody. Talk to each and every one of you very, very soon.